On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, the USS Harry Truman has been repaired. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So I want to give a quick update on the situation regarding the USS Harry S. Truman. This is the aircraft carrier that was involved in a collision north of Port Said, the north end of the Suez Canal, back in mid-February with a commercial bulker vessel, the MV Besiktas-M. A lot has transpired since our last video, so I thought it was time to do a quick little update. So this is USNI News, great source for all things naval. USS Harry S. Truman pulled into Souda Bay for repairs after the collision. So we had thought that that's where she was going to go, and that's exactly where she went. She was in there for 5 days undergoing emergency repair. Principal areas that were damaged by the vessel. One was this sponson just aft of elevator number 3 that was ripped open. The second one was the exhaust for the incinerator, but more importantly, hull damage. You can see right here in the image that you actually have a hull breach right here above the mooring station. So the vessel is open. That obviously it's way above the waterline there. It is not substantial that you're going to have ingress of water. However, a rupture like that is serious for the vessel. This is right on the stern. You've got the 4 massive props below it. A lot of vibration. If you have a crack or a rip in the ship, that could tear even further. And in rough water, this could be a potential problem. The agency that the Navy turned to was the Navy Sea Systems Command, specifically the Forward Deployed Regional Maintenance Center, the FDRMC. God, the Navy loves their acronyms. This is a forward deployed unit that's supporting both the 5th and 6th Fleet. They're serving both the 2 numbered fleets, 3 combatant commanders, and do work on 3 continents. They are headquartered in Naples, Italy, with detachments in Manamán, Bahrain, and Rota, Spain. It was this, the FDRMC, that responded. They also contracted with a local Greek ship repair facility to come in there and do the repairs. Now, I should note, we have not seen any images on the repair work that was done. So I am assuming 5 days they can do steel work to patch up what has been ripped. We don't know internally if any frames have been damaged or if that work was done. I should note this, that while you can, it's very easy and quick to weld steel over steel. The problem you have is that that steel patch isn't designed to stay on there for long periods of time. Stress can work the welds loose. Right now, they're trying to get Harry S. Truman back on station, which they've done. We'll talk about that in a second, to complete its deployment, get it back to the United States, where the ship is going to undergo a massive overhaul. The overhaul it's going to undertake is called an RCOH. The acronym means Refueling and Complex Overhaul. All Nimitz-class carriers have a lifespan of 50 years, and halfway through at 25 years, they come back in. They get refueled. In other words, the reactors get new fuel in them. But more importantly, they do a massive overhaul where they go over all the vessel systems, literally rip the ship apart and rebuild it. It takes years to do this. And so with that RCOH on the horizon, you just want to patch Truman enough to get her operational and out there. But I am interested in seeing, I'm sure we're going to get some images shortly on the repairs. The other issue is that the captain of the vessel, Captain Snowden, has been relieved. Again, story over from USNI News. Now, this is not unusual. The Navy will always come up with this idea of loss of confidence, and they will remove a ship's captain. However, I am questioning the Navy on this, because while they removed the serving captain on board Truman, and this has happened with carriers in the past, probably the most recent one that's got a lot of attention was the captain on George Washington that had a shipboard fire, and then the captain of Theodore Roosevelt during COVID was relieved. But the captain that wasn't relieved was the captain of the Bonhomme Richard, who literally lost his ship at the pier in San Diego. I've done a whole batch of videos on this. I'll have a link up above. The fact that that captain remained in command until the vessel was decommissioned just boggles the imagination for me. I'm not saying Snowden shouldn't have been relieved. I'm just saying that, okay, you relieved all these other captains. Why don't you relieve that captain? The captain that's been tasked to take over is one that will be familiar to many of you here on What's Going On with Shipping, and that is Captain Christopher Souda Hill. Captain Hill is the CO of the USS Eisenhower. Now, any captain on an aircraft carrier could have stepped in and taken over command of Truman. Captain Hill was in a very good place to do it. Eisenhower just went into a full overhaul, so not an RCOH, but a kind of the next level down from that. He had just deployed back from Persian Gulf, from the Red Sea, from the Mediterranean, so the ship was in the midst of an overhaul. The executive officer can take over in that period of time. Hill is very familiar with the situation that is going on, and so he's kind of a natural kind of selection for this. I will say that Captain Hill has a very interesting persona right now in the U.S. Navy. He's very active in social media, very much so, not for him promoting himself, but his crew. I think he's fantastic for that. I think probably there's been very few ship captains in the U.S. Navy who's done more for promoting the Navy than Captain Hill. I think he's done a tremendous job with that. Although I don't expect to see much from him right now. He is stepping in as a temporary CO on the Truman, and he's probably been told to kind of rein it down a little bit. So we won't expect much. However, he is very familiar with the operation of a Nimitz-class carrier, and more importantly, he understands operations in this AOR area of responsibility. So kind of a very natural selection. Then we have this story from USNI News on February 24th. USS Harry S. Truman back underway after repairs following the collision. The image here, really an important one. It shows you elevator 3 in the down position, meaning that even though, and you can see part of the structure here that is kind of ripped apart, that's that sponson. This was a big question we had, is whether or not the Eisenhower could use that third elevator. It was really important to ascertain that. I went on Ward Carroll's show, and we talked about this in a lot of detail, why that elevator was so important, because the way the hangars are configured, that third elevator is for the after hangar deck area. Yes, you can move planes internally in the ship, but you really need that elevator. I really recommend, if you haven't had an opportunity, go over to Ward Carroll's channel, please do so. I was on his video here on Brace for Impact, and then he just did a update here with the Truman back at sea. So Ward, always a great follow here. Just a couple of quotes from that article. This is from Captain Hill. Quote, "Our ship remains operationally ready to complete deployment with mission and purpose on full display by the entire crew. We are out here with launching and recovering aircraft ready to give 'em hell with combat credible power." I should note that is the motto of the USS Harry S. Truman, give 'em hell. We did see launching of aircraft when the vessel was sailing from Port Said back to Souda Bay, so they were already launching aircraft after the accident, before the repair. However, he is emphasizing that again. The emergent repair availability took 5 days, according to the release, and include the forward-deployed Regional Maintenance Center, Naval Norfolk Shipyard, and the Theopolis Group. My Greek is going to be terrible here. I apologize. Group, a local industry partner. The Truman Group has been dogged by incidents. This is the second major incident. Obviously, the bigger one that happened earlier this year was when the Gettysburg, the escorting cruiser, accidentally downed one of the FA-18Fs off the ship. Ward has an entire video on this. Really recommend it. I'll have it linked up here above, where he goes into detail about that. As a matter of fact, the key role that Captain Snowden played in preventing a second F-18 from being shot down. The ship is underway from Souda Bay, and what we're seeing is open source intelligence showing us that the vessel has redeployed back to the Red Sea. This is the USS Gettysburg and one of the Arleigh Burke destroyers based in the Red Sea. This is about 220 miles northwest of Yanbu. The ships are heading northwest toward the Suez Canal to rendezvous with USS Harry S. Truman and its escorting destroyer, probably the Jason Dunham. Here's the Truman and the escorting destroyer going through the Suez Canal. The previous day, USNS, United States Naval Ship Arctic, the MSC combat store ship that is supplying the Harry S. Truman, preceded the vessel through the Suez Canal. So I want to show you the track of Harry S. Truman, and I think it's very important to see how the track of Truman is different this time around than last time. Here you see the Harry S. Truman, that is U.S. government vessel number 75, pops up on 25 February at roughly around 1833 UTC time. It exits down here on 26 February at 1410 UTC time. I want to zoom in here and show you that the Harry S. Truman turned on its AIS, the automated identification system. It is the tracking system used for vessels, very much like planes have them, ships have them. However, U.S. naval vessels will turn them off. They are supposed to turn them on when they encounter traffic, when they come into tight traffic areas. This was a hard-learned lesson for the U.S. Navy. It came out of the McCain-Fitzgerald collisions of 2017, where 17 sailors were killed. You'll notice Truman, in this case, turns on her AIS when she enters the vessel traffic separation scheme. She then comes through this area. It was right around here where Truman had its collision with the bulker Besiktas coming out of the Suez Canal. The ship proceeded along the northern anchorage, came to a holding position over here, which is northeast of the Suez Canal. This is where they were heading to originally, but again, they got into traffic here and had their collision. Then the vessel picked up its pilot here and proceeded down the Suez for its travel. It goes right through the Great Bitter Lake, past the spot where Ever Given got stuck in the Suez, and then exits down here at the very end of the canal, and it will turn off its AIS as it emerges back out here into the Gulf of Suez and then down into the Red Sea to patrol the Red Sea, as particularly the area off here around Yemen, where the Houthis have been, not recently, attacking vessels. Also want to talk about the ship that was involved in the collision with the Truman, the Besiktas-M. This is the vessel transiting through the Turkish Straits. You can see the vessel is down almost to its load lines. We believe the vessel to have been laden. It was shown laden in marine traffic. The ship is heading up to Constanta in Romania to offload. This image on Turkish Straits from Twitter shows you the vessel coming in for docking. The note here in Turkish, using my Google Translate: Truman veteran Besiktas-M ship in Constanta, Romania. After unloading its cargo, the ship will enter the shipyard for repairs to the damaged area. And here you see the vessel coming in for offload. It's interesting, the vessel goes port side to, and you'll understand why the vessel goes port side to here in a moment. Here is a closer view of the vessel. Let's take even a closer. One of the things you'll note here, number one, is damage to the starboard forward corner of the number one hatch cover. You can see this tarp being put on there. We've seen images of the damage to this area and the hatch combing. This is the area around the hatch. Here, we believe the vessel hit right here. You'll see one of the reels for one of the mooring lines is missing, the capstan here. For one of the mooring lines, you'll see there's 1, 2 here on the port side. These are the ship's mooring lines that are out, affixed here to the bits that secure the vessel. One of the 2 are missing over here. That was taken off when the vessel hit. But the most pronounced damage is this front area right here, just above Besiktas-M, the M right here going forward. This is the starboard bow. This is the bulwark is bent back down. You can see the paint off it, the rust off it, and it's lying down. Couldn't really tie up starboard side 2 with this vessel because you can't lead the line through the chocks here and out because of the damage here. So this forward area of the vessel will have to be repaired. This is probably the area that hit the sponson, or it could be the forward hatch combing here and the hatch cover that hit. But this area probably is directly what hit the exhaust pipe for the incinerator on Truman and caused the hull damage on the vessel. So overall, both vessels got away with very minimal damage. I think that the collision between the two was a low-order collision. Fortunately, it wasn't a direct kind of T-bone. This is not my image, but I got it off of X, and I think it is fairly accurate to what happened here with Besiktas-M hitting that sponson right there and then hitting the starboard quarter here of Truman. I think Besiktas-M may have been not as shallow of an angle, maybe a little more of a steeper angle. It's hard to tell how much it is. And plus, we really haven't gotten a good image on the starboard side of Besiktas-M, whether or not they're scraping down the side of the vessel. But overall, Truman back on station in the Red Sea. I am waiting to see those images to see how they repaired those. If they've got the incinerator back up and running, that'll be an issue. But of course, Truman only has about a month or two left in its deployment, and then it's heading back home, and it's going to get relieved by the next East Coast carrier that's coming out. Plus, you have the Vincent and the Reagan in the Western Pacific, so there is coverage. However, I think the study here is going to be interesting, is how the forward repair facility performed their mission. What capabilities do they have, what limitations do they have, and what do we need to reinforce those repair facilities? I note that they're only really located out in the Fifth Fleet, which is the Central Command that is out Persian Gulf, the Middle East, and Sixth Fleet area out in the Mediterranean. I assume that there's something out in the Seventh Fleet in the Western Pacific, because that would seem to be a really critical area to have one, along with the Central and Eastern Pacific, the Third Fleet area. But again, maybe this will be an issue that will be raised up. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? Hit the super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly or yearly subscriber. Until the next video, this is Sal, signing off.